There's something irresistible about movies that take a stranger-than-fiction true story from the tabloid racks at the grocery store and spin it into a character study you just can't shake. Roofman has all those ingredients, from the absurd hook of a man living at Toys R Us, escaping law enforcement more than once, and finding love along the way. It's the kind of story you walk into thinking it'll be true crime campiness with sight gags and laughs, but by the end, it leaves you a little misty-eyed. Derek France's latest feature carries a very different tone from some of his previous award-winning work, like A Place Beyond the Pines and Blue Valentine, with a more wholesome vibe that feels like a tender homage to 80s and 90s classics. Roofman captures humanity in its rawest, most tangled form for a heartbreaking drama that stands refreshingly on its own. But at the heart of it all is Channing Tatum, who disappears into the titular role by stripping away that glossy movie star sheen we've all come to know him for to reveal something messier and achingly human. It's the kind of role we've been waiting to see him in, and he doesn't waste a single frame across the film's 126 minutes. Though Roofman has the DNA of a crowd pleaser, the film is built on France's indie instincts that narrow in on the most granular parts of ourselves, blurring tonal lines between comedy and tragedy until it all just feels like life itself. Tatum stars as real-life convicted spree robber Jeffrey Manchester, a man who comes home from military service in the late 90s, unable to support his wife and 3 young children. Desperate for cash, he uses his tactical skills to rob McDonald's by cutting holes in. However, Jeff escapes in 2004 and hides inside a Toys R Us for almost a year, all while law enforcement is still trying to find him. Building his own fort behind a wall with baby monitors while feasting on M&Ms and watching drama unfold between employees. Like it's his own reality show, it's here he first notices Lee, a newly divorced, church-going single mom with 2 daughters. When he decides to do something nice after overhearing a conversation between her and her irritatingly bullyish manager, Mitch, Jeff worms his way into her life and community, even charming her kids and the local pastor and his wife. Suddenly, that initial premise becomes a tug-of-war between deception and longing, while struggling to hold together the double life he's built. While it may feel like a romantic comedy woven in, it's this playful left turn with just enough uneasiness that keeps the movie surprising without ever breaking its pace. On paper, a movie with a premise, this bizarre feels like it might belong on Lifetime or a TLC dramatization, but the writing is razor-sharp and rises above gimmicks by leaning on real emotion and character development. It isn't always seamless in its tone, but it still works to tell the story. France and his co-writer, Kurt Gunn, never reduce Jeff to a punchline or a monster. Instead, they let him be a complicated man who equates love with providing, even if his methods are destructive. While the film might remind you a bit of Steven Spielberg's Catch Me If You Can at certain points, the biggest difference is in its perspective. Whereas Spielberg's film hums with that con man swagger, Roofman slows down in more quiet, vulnerable spaces, showing us the cost of a person living behind the mask who assumes his love will right the wrongs. But one of the most interesting parts to Roofman is how its dialogue feels loose and almost improvised between the actors, an aspect that speaks to the cast's chemistry. Tatum narrates much of the film in Jeff's voice for a personable touch that creates a steady intimacy with the audience. With a film like this, humor is especially key in creating a tone that is sharp, subtle, and witty without ever tipping into salaciousness. Even in its funniest beats, like Jeff getting a 200-piece playset instead of a bike for his daughter's birthday, or taking Jimmy O. Wang's car dealership salesman on a speedy test ride with Lee and her daughters, Roofman stays grounded in character and never forgets the emotional stakes. On top of charismatic writing that keeps you hooked, Roofman's production design is striking and deserves full credit for its time machine-like feel.